Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Influence Economy podcast. I'm your host, Shayna Davis, and I'm so glad that you're here today. But before we get started, I would love if you would do me a favor. So, wherever it is that you're listening to this episode, I want you to take a screenshot. With that screenshot, I want you to post it on your social media, tag us here at Shayna Rattler Davis, and then I just want to hear your biggest aha moment or your biggest takeaway from this episode. And the reason why I do that is because I recognize that far too many women are seen and not paid well. And the more times that these episodes are shared, the more times people can be exposed to the shifts that are going to be required in order to own their influence. Because if we're being honest, many women that find themselves in that situation, they flat out just don't know where to start to change that. And so I appreciate you. Thank you, thank you, thank you in advance for being willing to share. So, welcome back. You know that this is the podcast where we decode what it really takes to turn visibility into wealth and influence into lasting legacy. And if you've been listening for any amount of time now, especially in 2025, you know that one of my signature services and one of the primary things that I stand for is teaching you how to build $1 million multimedia empire with a podcast at the center. So today's episode, I just want to tell you, it's one that might ruffle a few feathers, and I'm okay with that because I'm not here to convince you that podcasting is cute content. I'm here to prove that podcasting is $1 million business model. You've heard me say before that it's my opinion, and it's been proven in many ways, that a podcast without a business model is just a hobby. And unfortunately, most people are seeing podcasting as a hobby, as a vanity project, or as a branding tool that might lead to opportunities if they just stay consistent long enough. You've heard this before, like just put out good content and the right people will find you. Except that's not a strategy, that's a hope. And hope is not a business model. I was at an event earlier this year. It was a large podcasting conference, and I met so many people that are like, you know what? I don't really care about reach. If only one person, hears my podcast and can actually do something or is motivated or inspired or activated by it, I'm fine with that. And I thought to myself, there are a whole lot of things that you can do other than a podcast just to reach one person, just to reach two people, 10 people, whatever. I believe that podcasting is the modern day vehicle for massive reach and unlimited income. And what I teach and what I live is the exact opposite of just hoping that your content is going to land and just hoping that if you put out the right content that the right people will find you, and if you have something to sell, will buy for you. Buy from you, I mean. In my opinion, like podcasting isn't a top of funnel content dump. It's a high leverage asset that can drive six, multiple six, even seven figures when built strategically. And the problem is that so many of us just have not been taught how to be strategic about our podcast. And I'm not talking about getting $27 from merchandise or $97 from a course after someone listens to your 53rd episode. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't do anything like that. But what I am talking about is closing 5 and 6 figure deals, landing corporate sponsorships, commanding $10,000 or more from speaking engagements, and building a media brand that positions you as undeniable. You really do have the ability to do all of those things and more through podcasting. But how do you really treat your podcast like a business asset? I'm going to break that down for you today. So, what makes podcasting a business model and not just content? Let's get into it. Number one, this is when you want to start writing things down. Number one, it's a platform for authority. A podcast gives you instant positioning. You're not just someone who has something to say. You're the one hosting the conversation. And that makes you the authority by default. And that authority translates to leverage in rooms where decisions are being made and checks are being written. Number one, it's authority. Number two, it's a sales engine when you build it right. Podcasting allows you to build a trust funnel, and it allows you to build that fast. People binge listen, they connect, and they buy, but only if your show is structured to lead listeners to offers. And that's where most creators miss the mark. There's no clear pathway from value to transaction, and that means that there's no money. And we don't do free labor around here. At least I don't. If you want to do free labor, that's your business, as my grandmother used to say. But around here, I don't believe in free labor because I don't believe that your labor has to be free. I believe that if you're going to put in the work, that your labor should reap you rewards. Number three, your podcast opens the door to high level partnerships. When done strategically, your podcast becomes the access point to rooms that you wouldn't get into otherwise, like corporate contracts, licensing deals, strategic collaborations. Your podcast becomes a portfolio of intellectual property, and that, my friends, is bankable. Number four, it builds a brand that transcends algorithms. Y'all, I'm so tired of these social media algorithms. I really, doubled down this year and I've been taking courses and I've been learning things for social media, even though I really don't want to do it. I recognize that I have to do it. But unlike social media, podcasting is not at the mercy of those algorithm gods. Your listeners choose to engage. And that makes podcasting one of the most intimate and trust driven platforms that you can own, which is gold in a world full of scrolling and skipping. I hope you see that as good news. And then number five, it's scalable and sellable. Let's get real bold for a second. If built properly, a podcast can evolve into a sellable brand. Have you thought about that? Have you thought about the fact that you could sell your podcast just like you could a business? Think big. Think syndication, licensing, even acquisition. That's the long game. And if you're playing it right, your podcast becomes a media asset and not just marketing. So we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, I'm going to share with you what no one tells you about podcasting, but I will. We'll be right back. Ready to turn your influence into income? Take the Influence Growth Assessment. In just minutes, you'll uncover the next steps to grow your visibility, attract bigger opportunities, and boost your profitability. Visit myinfluencestyle.com to take the assessment today. A new era of success is waiting. Let's make it yours. Welcome back. So, we're talking about all things that make your podcast a business asset. Right before the break, I was talking about how if you build your podcast strategically, that you could even sell it one day. But now I want to share with you something that no one tells you about podcasting. But I'm going to share it with you. Nowadays they're like, there's no gatekeeping. Well, yes, I'm not going to gatekeep. I'm not going to hold anything back. I'm going to share with you what the gurus are not telling you. So here's what the how to start a podcast gurus won't tell you. Monetizing a podcast has nothing to do with downloads and everything to do with direction. And I'm going to just let you sit with that for a second because we've all been taught about downloads. And I'm not saying that downloads are not important, but what I'm saying that the direction of your podcast has so much more to do with whether or not you're positioning it for monetization than just the downloads. Because if your content isn't aligned with a monetization ecosystem, you'll be stuck in the cycle of doing all of the work for none of the reward. And what do I mean when I say ecosystem? I'm talking about the products and the services and the partnerships and all of the things that you build around your show that is the best type of monetization strategy that's out there. And that's exactly what I teach in Make Millions Podcasting. It's a course of mine, but I want to walk you through exactly how to build a podcast that prints revenue, not just reels. I show you in this program how to turn one show into multiple income streams, from corporate sponsors and consulting deals to high paid speaking and brand licensing. Because when podcasting is approached as a business model, it doesn't just get you exposure, it gets you paid consistently and strategically and at scale. That's what I call visibility ROI. You take the visibility of your show, you build a monetization ecosystem around it that you can align your content with, and that is the best way to get return on investment from the visibility of your show. That is the best way to make 6 and 7 figures, and some people have even made 8 figures from their show. So you have to recognize that If you take nothing else from what it is that I've talked about in this episode, you're not just a podcaster. You are a media owner, a content CEO, a brand architect. You've got to start thinking like that. You can't just think, oh, I have this podcast. I say all the time, like if you're going to treat your podcast like a hobby, it's really not the best use of your time. Start to see yourself as a media owner. Start to see your podcast as a business asset. Now, only if you treat your podcast like the multi-million dollar asset that it is, and not just an audio diary that you hope somebody stumbles across. You want it to be the ones who win in the new economy. You want to be one of those ones. The ones who win in the new economy are the ones who build like it's already valuable and then they monetize accordingly. So if you're ready to stop playing small and finally treat your podcast like the business asset is, I want you to go check out and get inside of my digital course, Make Millions Podcasting. Now, this isn't a course about mics and editing. I'm not going to tell you how to start your podcast. I'm not going to tell you about your episodes. There's plenty of stuff that's out there. What this is it's a blueprint to build a podcast that sells, scales, and secures major opportunities. And you're going to walk away with the strategies to monetize beyond ads and downloads, to pitch and land high level sponsorships, to turn your show into deal closing machine, and finally stop wondering if your podcast is working. You can grab that course right now at makemillionspodcasting.com. That's makemillionspodcasting.com. And start building your 7-figure podcast strategy today. Because remember, you're not just creating content, you're building a business. Until next time, stay bankable.